You are now entering the horror section.
Hello, and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with Kellen and TJ, and today we're taking you all the way back to January 17th, 2025, as we discuss Leigh Whannell's remake, retelling, whatever the hell you want to call it, or whatever the hell it was supposed to be, Wolfman, starring Julie Garner and Christopher Abbott. I don't know who Christopher Abbott is either. If you're not familiar, a family at a remote farmhouse is attacked by an unseen animal. But as the night stretches on, the father begins to transform into something unrecognizable. Now, as I just said, this is a very, very new movie, less than a month old when we're recording this. So there will be spoilers.
Yeah. And one of the first spoilers is this may be the worst horror movie of 2025, and it just came out in January.
That's great.
Also, to redeem myself just a little bit, it says producer was Ryan Gosling.
He was also tied to.
Sorry, your movie was trash.
He was also so I don't know if he still produced it or not, because he was supposed to be the Wolfman.
I think he was just attached early, so
so his name might be on there, but I don't know that he actually followed through with the producing since he didn't actually star in it.
I think he was just part of developing it in its first iteration, and then they changed it when he couldn't play the Wolfman.
Well, that explains why it's trash, because he probably jumped ship after he read the script. To tell you how bad this is, excuse me, and this isn't anything against Thriller, but the intro to Michael Jackson's Thriller is a better Wolfman movie than this. The movie they're watching in the theater is far and above better than this movie. So just watch the beginning of Thriller, and that'll get your Wolfman fix if you need one. I don't even know where to start, because I love Julia Garner. She was fantastic in the Netflix series, whatever it was called,
Ozark.
Jason Bateman.
Ozark,
yes. I loved that show. It was great. I know she got a lot of heck for that. If you want to stop me, you're going to have to fucking kill me. But I love that. It was such an intense scene. It showed how great of an actress she was. And then they gave her hot garbage to act in, and she's still great. She does really good in this movie. It's just a bad movie. There's so many cliches in this. I don't get why did they even throw in that they're possibly having marital problems? What did that have to do with the story at all? It didn't affect anything, because they jumped so quick into them going to the cabin that it never had anything to build off of. Yes, Jay.
The only thing that I could think of on that, because I had the same question, it was a little unnecessary, but it's integral to the plot because he's changing into someone she doesn't recognize anymore. So it's kind of imitating the way her life is, because I felt like they were kind of drifting apart and they didn't know one another as well as they once did. So that was the only thing I could think of, is maybe like, hey, it's just kind of like a metaphor for what was about to come.
Well, it was a dumb metaphor, because they didn't do any time or build any time for you to care about the character's relationship to begin with. It starts with his dad being an asshole to him as a kid, and then flash forward to him, guess what? Showing signs of being an asshole to his kid, even though he's trying not to continue that. So I don't know if the director or the writer had dad issues and was trying to resolve them with this movie. But you can't do a movie about emotional things and it also be a scary movie if you don't build the emotional part of the movie so that we care. The only reason you care what happens to the family is because you don't want the kid to get hurt. But even then, it didn't build enough for you to care about the kid to begin with. You just don't want the kid to get hurt because it's a kid. The person in the road bit in horror films, talking about cliches, is so overplayed, where the person panics and swerves off the road. Two, how did they manage to find the house that they didn't know how to get to after they wrecked the van? It was the most perfectly timed accident they could have had, because they wreck and it's like, oh, here's the house. So glad we found it. They drove till dark, crashed, and happened to find a house. And then they find a flashlight in the house, and it's, of course, the worst flashlight ever made. I actually took a flashlight in my own house, turned the lights off, and turned it on, and you can see at least 75% of anything you're looking at, but not in movies. No, sir. You just get the beam of the light, whatever it's pointing directly at, and you can't see anything else. So I'm so tired of that cliche. Just if you're going to be dark, just be dark. If you're going to have a flashlight, have it more where they turn around and it's revealed, not that they're pointing it directly at something and then they just missed it. It's so dumb. It's so dumb. It makes no sense.
Would you say that it's dumb?
I think, okay, yeah, it's very dumb. It's poorly written. The dialogue is garbage. This should have been like the last Exorcist movie that we watched. This should have taken place over several weeks. Trying to cram it into one night was such a dumb decision, especially when you have his wife figuring it out almost immediately. I mean, there's no time to build up that something is happening to him physically. It's just the car wreck happens. They find the house. He is acting a little weird. And she's like, I think he's infected with something. Please, somebody come and help me, on a CB radio that they never explained that why she would even know how to use in the first place. She's going through the channels. Then you have the part where the wolf man that he's turning into, that turned him, is hunting them. And of course, of all the options that you have to escape, you're going to climb on top of a plastic greenhouse with a ladder. At what point is it just forced suspense for suspense's sake? Like, you know that he's going to start cutting through. Like the punch through the windshield, that was about the only good jump scare in the movie, and even that was still predictable because that's what always happens when somebody's in a car. Somebody on the outside has superhuman strength and can punch a perfect hole through the windshield, or can bust out the side window and drag people out of it. Again, this movie is nothing but cliches on cliches. The worst offense in this entire movie is them deciding that the wolf man should be more man than wolf. He looked like if you chewed gum and dropped it on the floor of a veterinary's office and then picked it up. Whatever stuck is what's going to be on him. That was such a horrible decision for a wolf man. Not to mention, and I think I've talked about this before, they have him run on all fours. Quit making human people run on all fours. It doesn't work. The proportions are off. That's why when you have Twilight did a better person turning into a wolf because they just turned him into a wolf. Other Wolfman movies where, like Werewolf in London, where they walk on their hind legs, but they're still more wolf than man, makes sense. Him being a man with a glandular problem that grew too much hair was such a terrible take on such an iconic character. When we're talking about the pantheons of horror history, and you start saying the most iconic horror movie monsters, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, Wolfman. Somebody might say the Invisible Man, somebody might say Creature from the Black Lagoon, but Wolfman is in that conversation of greatest horror creatures of all time. I have a replica mask on my wall from like a 1950s Halloween costume of the Wolfman. That's how iconic it is. And to whiff so bad on a movie called Wolfman of making the Wolfman look like a Wolfman is just at best egregious.
It was more of a man wolf, right?
Yeah, it was like I don't know if you've ever seen those things where they do like Spider-Man and then Man Spider, and it's just a spider that has the briefcase. And I mean, that they leaned way too hard into the wrong part of the creature.
It was like if in The Fly, the old Jeff Goldblum, The Fly, if instead of a fly had entered, a wolf had entered, but then we just got like 2 days into transition or something.
Yeah, or the wolf had the mange. It was such a terrible decision. I go into every movie open-minded. I'd heard a little chatter in the group chat that this wasn't great. But I still go in open-minded because I like to be entertained. That's why I watch movies. I watch movies for the entertainment factor. And it was probably the 30-minute mark is when I was too done with this movie to care anymore. And I did watch the whole thing all the way to the end. And then I'll pass it on. The dumbest thing in the whole movie, aside from the look, was having the daughter, after, we'll say 12 hours, having the cognizance to say he just wants this to be over while they're in the deer stand, bringing the movie full circle, where his dad had the gun pointed in the beginning. No child of anybody, especially if the father was trying to be a good dad, in the night that their dad got sick would be like, just shoot him, mom, put him down. I don't care about Old Yeller anymore. He's rabid. I mean, that was such a dumb decision to end the movie. And then of course, her and the mom go and stand in a beautiful Irish Springs commercial background. So that's my thoughts. This movie was trash. I hate that I had to watch it. And if another movie comes along this year that's worse than this, I will be absolutely shocked.
All fair points. TJ, your turn.
Well, I for once I can't really say that I can disagree with really anything that Kellen had to say because this was not a Wolfman movie. It was it was vaguely like a new take on a werewolf movie. Um, it kind of reeked of maybe they had a bigger budget and um, it started as a bigger production, but then they tried to make it smaller after they had already kind of started going with the idea. Because there's only like 5 or 6 characters in the whole film, but it starts like in a city. There's this promise. I mean, capitalizing on the Universal Wolfman lore and that property and Blumhouse's relationship with Universal to be able to use that character like they did to great success a few years back with The Invisible Man, making probably the best Invisible Man movie that's ever been. Uh, Only to, with banking off the promise of that to deliver such a what seems like an underdone and underwhelming thing, like the chemistry between the father and the wife just was nothing, and maybe that was part of the intention. But since we didn't get any like real relational capital with them on the front end, I mean, the only crux of this film is the father daughter relationship, and that's all based off of him taking her to town in one scene, and obviously protecting her from jumping into traffic or whatever. Just basic human father, you know, child stuff. But not a lot of backstory, not a lot of character development, and really I think this would be an okay new take on a small scale werewolf movie, but calling it Wolfman just shoots it in the foot from the beginning because it's not a Wolfman movie. The original 1941 Wolfman's my second favorite Universal horror film. It's my second favorite Universal monster after Dracula. I'll always love 1931's Dracula the best personally, but I lean more towards liking vampires and Dracula's over werewolves anyway. Werewolf movies are a weird thing because it's hard to get a top 10 like really good ones. There's only a handful of great ones. And most people will say the original Wolfman, American Werewolf in London, and The Howling, the original Howling, none of its sequels, are probably like the 3 best. Almost all horror people I know will say those are the 3 best. There's a handful of other newer ones like what was it? Werewolves Within come out a few years back. That was pretty good.
The Wolf of Snow
Wolf of
Hollow.
Snow Hollow is a good one. That's
It's a
in
little
everybody's top
different.
10.
It's a little
It's a different
but
take. It's like a
it's
dark
good.
comedy, very indie, but
Jim
it's good.
Cummings, anything Jim Cummings ever does, I will watch it. I will buy it. He's fantastic.
He's great. He's great. And like those 2 would be in my top 10 and most people's top 10s. There's not a lot of great werewolf movies.
Brotherhood of the Wolf. Have you ever seen that one?
That's good. It's
Yeah,
not
I like
really
that
a
one a lot.
werewolf movie, but
I wasn't
sold as a
talking to you,
werewolf
Kellen.
movie.
You don't have to shake your head. I know
I
it's
was about to
it's a
say-
foreign
Oh.
film.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
foreign film that was made with French Canadians.
Yeah.
Yeah, with Spanish actresses. It was
Yeah.
like 3
I
hours
like that
long,
one.
and had some like wire work from like the 1970s Shaw Brothers type thing, and it has the Iron Chef as an Indian in it. Mark Dacascos. Yeah, I mean, werewolf movies don't get a lot of love, but I think what is so egregious about this is, yeah, they chose to do more man than wolf. However, his dad was more wolf than he was. So that didn't
So
make a lot of sense
that's
either.
I took when Kellen was saying that, I took down a note and I was saying maybe because like again this was like what 24 hours, so maybe as the disease or whatever progresses he becomes more wolf-like. That's the only thing I could think of. Like when a newborn bird is hatched, it doesn't have feathers yet, it
But
grows
how
into
long? His dad was changed long enough to be pronounced dead, and he still was more man than wolf.
I don't know. I'm just trying to fill in some holes here, kid.
I think the terrible character that they did at the Universal Horror Nights that everybody was saying was terrible actually looked better than the end result. It was more wolf than what we got with the main wolf man. It's not the wolf man's dad, it's the wolf man. Um, but yeah, I don't know. This movie had promise. Uh, it had a couple tense scenes. They were both oddly enough in the deer blind at the beginning and the end scene. I kind of liked how they, opened and foreshadowed that, and then kind of ended poetically with that. But everything in between was just. I, they did a lot of choices that took away the tension. Like I thought it was kind of interesting and experimental how they shifted from like third person perspective to his first person perspective as he's changing and turning into the wolf, and then not really being able to understand, and then he's seeing people like in night vision and stuff. But they killed the illusion of the tension with a lot of that stuff. If they'd have just shined a light in that barn they run into and then suddenly he's there, that would have been a good jump scare. But
I
you
would say
always
that
knew
was
he
an
was right there.
interesting. That was an interesting thing they did. It was just so poorly done. The eyes being glowy but too big for their heads. The floaty stuff, like they were in the Upside Down in Stranger Things. It was like a cool concept going into his mind changing and then them, but it was done poorly.
It would have been a cool thing to do in a video game if you could play as the Wolfman character, but doing it in a film where you're playing for a third party audience, it takes totally took away the tension. And it was a little discombobulating going back and forth between, okay, what perspective are we seeing now? It almost was like a tale of two movies after it started doing that stuff. And while it was somewhat interesting, ultimately it just did not connect well. And the fact that you take away his human faculties, which was the only thing that would have allowed you to connect with him as a character and him to connect with the other characters in the film, when you take that away so early, that just makes you not care about him or their relationships as a family. Since we didn't get any character development really going into it, other than their marriage is on the rocks and he loves his daughter. And that's really about the extent of the character development you get for the whole film. That and he's estranged from his dad. Well, you knew all that in the first 5 minutes. And you don't get anything else other than he's turned into a wolf man. And you know he's turned into a wolf man because the damn movie's called The Wolf Man.
And it shouldn't be, right?
And
It
it
shouldn't
shouldn't
be.
be.
They should have made it his own film. Julie Garner is the best part of the entire thing. She's fantastic, right? I'm interested if Ryan Gosling had stayed on board, how it would have done. I think it probably would have made more money for sure. I don't know how much better it would be because we often we yell at directors for making shitty movies, but they're just making the script that they've been given. So the writers have a lot to do with that. I'm very pissed at the producers and whoever that were connected to Invisible Man because Invisible Man is one of the best horror movies we've had in a long time. So they're putting this on front of this saying, hey, same studio, same guys, check it out. Also, it's connected, Universal Monsters. But their biggest mistake was calling it Wolfman, period. There was no chemistry between the characters at all. And maybe they rewrote that beginning where their marriage was on the rocks because they were filming and they're like, they hate it. Like, they don't seem like they like each other at all. They don't belong together. Also, her playing a mom already, like, she's 34, I think. Like, that was a little off-putting for me. I thought there was a lot of potential. I enjoyed the single location part of it. I think that makes a Wolfman movie a little creepier than, being chased through a city or an open landscape. Like just being confined to this farm, I thought was pretty creepy. The barn part, too dark. That was my biggest complaint in the entire movie. I saw this in theaters and it was too dark. I couldn't even imagine watching it at home. I liked what they were trying to do, but like Kellen said, it felt weird. It didn't look good. Also, your eyes adjust. Your eyes adjust, and like they were just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do we do? It's too dark. We can't see. You could see something, and the moon was out. Why he was a werewolf, I would assume. Barns are notorious for having lines in their, wood. Like, there would be some light in there. I hated that part. I hated the greenhouse part too, like you had mentioned, Carlin. I thought that, like, again, okay, sure, lack of options. I get it. It was high up, so I can kind of see the logic there. If we were in that situation, will we have done the same thing? Maybe. Who knows? But also, my biggest question too was the car wreck. How high up were they? Because the guy fell and paralyzed himself, right? And then they just kind of jump off and walk away. That was so confusing to me, because at first I'm like, okay, they're not that far up. I'm like, oh shit, he fell. I guess they are pretty far up. How are they going to get out? Oh, they just jump down. Like, I don't know. That part was very confusing. It all felt rushed, and maybe it was by the studios. I don't know. Like, we got to get this out. We got to get this out. But it was very underwhelming, and I was excited to see it, which is why I went to theaters to see it. Kellen, Wolfman or Abigail?
Oh, Abigail was better than this.
Yeah,
Abigail was a better story, and I will say you made a point, and it maybe that's why they may have changed some things, because they definitely had no chemistry, and that really affects, because I think this is a better movie. You can shoot the same location if they're going on vacation and it's a loving husband and wife, and he's starting to slowly change over a couple of weeks, and then full moon fully comes to werewolf or wolfman status. But they had no chemistry. Like, at no point did I think, oh, these two people would end up together in real life.
Right. And I guess they kind of changed the lore a little bit too, because the opening I thought was fantastic, like him in the deer blind, but it was daytime, right?
Yeah. So this is just like a Wendigo or something.
But even I thought, well, maybe the
woods.
moon's still out. It could still be a full moon that night, and it's in the sky. Like, I don't know. There were some very, very questionable decisions. And you guys,
as good
know
as
me,
the Invisible Man was, that's how bad this was.
right? And you guys know me. I like everything, right? And I didn't hate this as much as Kellen did, obviously. But it's like, and did I pre-order the Steelbook? Yeah, because I have a fucking problem. But yeah, I don't know. It was very lacking. Call it something else. That was from the jump. I'm like, call it something else, guys. Like, you don't have to tie into that. So, all right. That went about as well as I thought it was going to. Let's go around and give our rankings. Close up shop. I'll go first. I think I gave it a 2.5 the first time. I'm going to drop it down to a 2. And no, I didn't watch it again. I just thought about it and took my notes. I'm like, and the points you guys made, like it could have been so much better, and it almost feels like a slap in the face to horror fans that they just kind of ran with what they did. So I give it a 2. Kellen?
A movie is bad when me, Jay, and TJ all agree that it's bad. Like, I cannot stress that enough. I am known for shitting on things. That is my station in this podcast. But when I finish my rant and TJ's like, I can't really argue any points, this is a bad movie. And then when Jay, who admittedly likes everything, says this was not a good movie, you can trust us when we say it's a bad movie. Right. I painted myself in a corner with the Abigail rating, so I'm gonna have to give it a 0.5 star. I don't think it's a 0. I've established what a 0
you bumped
is.
Abigail up to 1.
Yeah, so I can't really.
I don't want.
Okay. I can't even give this the same rating as Abigail, because this is this arguably is a worse movie. So,
well, it's definitely a worse movie than Abigail. I think everyone would universally say that.
All right, TJ, bring it home.
Man, I think it's a 1 for me. Yeah, that's just not good. I'll probably never watch it again. I definitely won't own it.
Thanks to Kellen, that's going to put us at a 1. That might be our first 1 ever. We've had a 0 with the Mickey's Mousetrap, which is deserving. We should have gave that a negative.
That's the 0, yeah.
But 1 Wolfman 2025, 1 Wolf, 1 full moon out of 5. That's pitiful. It's pitiful. And I think those ratings, it's fair, because like I said, we went in thinking this was going to be good because who was involved with it. But I would like to deep dive into the Gosling part and see why he left, if it was a filming thing, if it was a script thing, what it was. But yeah,
This movie was rough.
I tell you one thing, you know, for all the shit that rough for all the shit that the Wolfman remake with Benicio del Toro got, man, that movie is like Oscar bait.
Yeah, but it's so
movie.
boring. That movie is so damn boring. I tried to watch it again after I watched this one, and it is better. I will give you that. But the original is still the best.
Oh,
but that the Benicio del Toro one's just too damn long and too damn boring. So, all right. That's it for this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Amazon Music. We have a playlist that we update. There is no Wolfman music on it because I couldn't find the score. But do all that. Come back next week. I'm not sure what we're talking about. It's going to be a guest or a movie. We have a lot of fun guests lined up. So definitely come back. Signing off. I'm Jay with Kellen and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.
Werewolves
London.